But a warrior has got to be able to go against what seems to be popular. A warrior has got to up the ante, push the envelope. But in order to do that, we got to be clear about who we are and what it is that we want. And that's what the so-called leaders have not been able to give us. They have no agenda. So that means that you're always compromising because you're always acting out of fear. If leadership really meant something, then you would never act out of fear. That's not to say you don't get afraid sometimes. But fear can't be your agenda. Fear cannot be your agenda. So these leaders are clearly not warriors. And we're talking about warriors. Now, the warrior spirit makes you able to confront whatever needs to be confronted and let the chips fall where they may. That's right. And what we've done is to develop a program, a plan, and so forth, which is to say, let us go the way of the least resistance. What's the easiest way? What's the way that's, not going to get people mad at us? That's not a political agenda, and it's not a position of a sovereign people. So I think what I'm really doing is questioning this whole thing of leadership. We've watered down the concept of a leader. We have Uruguayized the concept of a leader. So that now, who we consider to be leaders, you got to be a star. And when I say a star, I don't mean a black star. I mean like Hollywood. That's what I mean. You got to be popular, and you got to say the popular things. See, I was trained by none of John Henry Clark. And that gives me the power to say what I think is truth to my people. And that's what he did. Even when it was unpopular among our people, he had to tell the truth. And he said, watch out now. He ain't working for you. Watch out. And people came to him and they warned him. They said, Professor Clark, you really want to say that? You really want to take this position? He said, yeah, because this is the truth. Now that's who I was trained by, so I got to do the same thing, okay? But when we talk about leader now, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the person who wants to remain popular. We're talking about the person who may be glib, got away with words, but they're really not saying anything. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the person who develops this personality thing that makes them all about them. We're talking about the person who always wants to stay in the limelight. Person who's ego tripping. So I'm suggesting that we scratch that term, leader. And that what we need are organizers, we need warriors. We need victors. Me, I'm in it to win it. There's nothing less than that. That's what Baba Kobe said on Friday. We in it to win it. So we do whatever we have to do to make that happen. And we say whatever we know is truth or believe is truth or have thought about it. Okay? Problem is that the so-called leaders are not doing political analysis. They're not doing historical analysis. So therefore, they're not in a position to be a vanguard. You see, they're not in a position to teach because they're not doing the work that you do when you want to take your people where they need to go. So I'm raising that here, and I'm saying that we need to more think in terms of what we need to be in order to be warriors, what we need to be in order to be organizers of our people. And then one of the most important things, which I will be talking about, is being visionaries. That's what we're lacking. If a person gets up in front of you and they say they purport to be your leader, or somebody presents them as a leader, you have a responsibility to confront them, not in a negative way, but to say to them, what is your vision for our people? And I will guarantee you that most of the people now that are called leaders by the media would kind of scratch their head a bit. They would, shift a little and do all of that stuff because they have not thought about that and do not have a position with regard to what is a vision of victory for our people. You got to have that, because that's what tells you how to organize. And that's why we don't have an agenda, because the people who are supposed to be developing all of that don't do it. They don't have an agenda. So that everything they do is reacting to what the enemy does. You see? We have to even have a vision that goes beyond the presence and existence of Urugu. We have to be able to envision a world with no Urugu, an African world. Then what do we want it to look like? What do we want for our children in our world? We have to have the courage to construct our own reality. And that's what Garvey was talking about. That's right. Because he said he looked around, he didn't see what he thought should be there, and so what did he do? He didn't get depressed about it. He didn't get defeated about it. He said, I'm going to build the government that we need to have. Ooh, where do you get that kind of boldness from? So we got to go all the way back to Garvey, who said he would come again. He said he would be here with us, no matter how long it took. And I'm telling you that the way he comes back is in our work. Not honoring him in words, or pomp and all of that stuff, but honoring him through doing what he did. How many of us have the courage to do that? The man took on the world for us and in our name. But let me go on. Okay, it's about power, y'all. And anybody who talks about anything else or tries to make it about anything else, they just shucking and jiving. It's all about power. Okay? What I want to do is, I want to introduce some concepts, because one of the things that I do, that I've used as a process, rather than a methodology, because it takes me, it transforms me, is to study our ancestral civilizations, our ancestral languages, and get from them concepts that we can use to anchor our thoughts, and then use those concepts to apply to us now. Okay, that's my work. And so today I want to quickly introduce to you some concepts, and I'm going to use a kind of paradigm, a model that comes from the Dogana people of Mali. And the first one that's up there is Sodai, which is clear vision. And I'm saying that we need to be developing vision. And the vision has got to be of African sovereignty. That's clear. And it keeps us focused. So what I want to do is to go back quickly through the paradigm. And stop me if there's anything that you don't understand. And I hope some people are taking notes. Hope a lot of people are taking notes. Jiriso in this paradigm would be like the most, I started to say fundamental, but it isn't fundamental at all. It's like the lowest level of knowing. It really is the level on which the European worldview is built. It's the most simplistic, not simple in a good way, but simplistic. So we call it word from the front. And that means really what you see is what you get. You see what I'm saying? Is that it is the literal level. It is the superficial level. It has no depth. Now you know, to understand anything that African people are talking about, doing, their music, you know, our science, all the things that we did, you got to think deeply. And this is about African deep thought. You know, you can't be easy on yourself when it comes to African thought and African life. And organizing for African people. You got to work. You got to think. And you got to think deeply. Jiriso is not that. Again, it's what you see is what you get. So ain't no interpretation, and it can't be any understanding. So Jiriso is sight without understanding. Everybody got that? Now we go to Beniso. And what happens at Beniso is that you begin to look at the thing and from different angles. You know, you're getting some perspective, and it translates word from the side. Now, I'm going to tell you, I see these things, I've read them, I have not been to Mali, so I have not spoken with a Dogana person. I am interpreting and using them just like I did with the term Ma'afa. Just like I did with the term Yurugu. I am using my African spirit to say, how does this apply to us? And how can we use this for analysis? Okay? So Beniso is where we begin to think. You ain't even thinking at the Jiriso level. Not African thought. Okay? So we're at Beniso. And we're beginning to develop a viewpoint. We're beginning to develop a perspective. And one of the most important things that I teach our children, and I'm talking little, you know, from 6 on, is that we have to understand we have a perspective as African people. And so what you want your children to know, and yourselves, is to look at and develop and know what is the African-centered perspective on whatever it is that you're talking about. Okay? If somebody tells you, oh, there's just this objective thing and it's you know, universal and so you don't need to interpret, then they're running a game on you. And that's what the Europeans do, and have been able to convince some of our people who are in the universities that, yeah, this is the highest form, is this objective thing that has no cultural base. That's a big mistake, okay? Because that particular objective view, objective truth, or whatever it is that they say they're giving you, represents their worldview and their perspective, which is anti-African. And you're going for it. You're going for the okie doke, but we're going for it. Okay? So I'm coming back here and saying, no, everybody's got a perspective. Every culture creates and generates a perspective, and we got to know ours. But at any rate, so at the level of Beni So, we're beginning to establish a viewpoint, a perspective, which allows us then to interpret things from our point of view. Got it? This is simple. So then I say that this, Beni So, is a level of sight with thought and perspective. Everybody with me? Yes. Good. Then we move to another level, and Bolo So is translated word from behind. Well, what I do when I'm working with the children is to say to them, I let them interpret it and think about it. What do you think that means? Because it really is open to us thinking and looking at it in different ways. There's no right or wrong way. For me, if I stand in front of something and I can see behind, then that means I can see through it. So I'm saying you're going inside there. So that's really deep. You can get inside something, okay? So I say it's penetrating to the inner meaning of whatever it is that you're looking at. Now remember, if we go all the way back to Jiri So, you're just looking at the surface and thinking that you know something. You don't know nothing, okay? Because you're not at the level of meaning. Meaning is very, very important. Without meaning, what is something? You know, they say, just give me the facts. All I want is the facts. Fact is nothing out of context. For a fact to have meaning, you have to put it into a context. And we define what that context is, and what is it? It's African sovereignty. Okay, so where does it fit within that? That's how we determine the meaning of something. And our children can do that. If we train them properly, they can think on that level when they're little. So we're finding the essence of a thing at the level of Bolo. So we're seeing through it, and we are getting insight. Insight. Do you see how that works? Okay? Understanding on a deeper level. You get insight into something, into how it works. And that's a problem for us because we haven't studied how the system works. And the mistake that we made again in 2008, and so you would expect our people generally to make this mistake, but not the so-called leadership, is that it wasn't personal, y'all. And it ain't personal now. It's not about a person. It is about a system. And that system is oppressive to us. And the one thing that I would add to what Daruba was saying was that we got to look at what this administration did with regard to Africa and is doing with regard to Africa, our motherland, that we have a responsibility to protect. We got to understand, every person here should know what Africano is. Okay, and if you don't, then you go back home and look it up and study it. Go to Black Agenda Report and begin looking and getting that information. See what Brother DJ does on the cipher, and is that what you call it? Okay. Get this information, because Africano didn't just start in 2008. But Obama was on board and said that he was going to take it to another level. And what it is a military presence of U.S. in Africa, which is poised to bomb and kill our people. And of course, steal the resources which are supposed to be ours. Well, what is that? That's imperialism, that's colonialism, y'all. But see, what you're thinking is, and the mistake that we're thinking, it may be imperialism, it may be colonialism, but it ain't slavery. That's really what we're thinking somewhere in the back there, or feeling. That we're not slaves. But I'm going to ask you the question. What is to prevent us from being that? Do we have the power? Have we consolidated our power so that we can defend ourselves and prevent ourselves from being slaves? Can we protect our children? Brothers, can you protect your wives? You see what I'm saying? That only comes from power. And it comes from a consciousness that says who we are. You got to know how you define we. Getting back to this, the paradigm. So that's bolo so. And then we come to Sodai. And in this presentation of the paradigm, I'm going to make this like what it is we want to reach. So Sodai is translated clear word in Dogana language. And I use it to mean that here we gain understanding. This is sight with understanding. And it is seeing beyond what just we think we see with this physical thing. It's seeing beyond that. And so we gain vision, because that's what vision is. With vision, you've got to be able to use the imagination informed by the African spirit. And Brother Amos, who I work very closely with, was a good friend of mine. He taught me, and he would talk about imagination. Imagination. Do you see? But that's got to be part of vision. To be a visionary, you got to see beyond this box here. You got to see beyond the ma'afa. You got to see what is it that our people rightfully should have, and that's what Garvey did. Garvey had a vision.